Okay. Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. I'm Reed Price. I'm the director of the center, and I am happy to have you here. We're going to talk a little bit about a program that is being sponsored through Grace Church to help kids explore climate justice. And we'll get to that in just a minute, but I want to start by acknowledging that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Suquamish people, the people of the clear salt water who have been living in these areas since time immemorial, and we honor them, and we are learning from their stewardship of these lands and waters. Also, I'd like to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island, which has independent and assisted living as well as memory care up on Rolling Bay. They have a lovely campus and they'd love to give you a tour. You can find out more by calling 206 594 1010. Ask to talk to Celia or Jamie, and they'd be glad to give you a free lunch or dinner as part of that tour in their bar and grill. You can also check out their website at fieldstonecommunities.com. And so I got a little, I guess it was a flyer that you dropped by, John Kidd, at the Senior Center, and it talked about a grant program. And we'll get to that in a minute, but I think that the spirit behind the grant program is to address what many of our young people are experiencing, as are we, some climate anxiety. So thank you for joining us today to talk a little bit about that and about the program that you and Grace Church are looking to launch.
Great. Would you like me to start or make some comments?
Yeah, please tell us a little bit about this program that you are working on.
Okay, well, the idea basically is that I've had the honor of attending a variety of climate summits, locally, nationally, and globally. And one of the things that I've found is that many of the older folks are leaning on the younger folks to say, well, it's too late for us. You can solve it. You can solve it. And in many forms, I've talked to youth and they have a very high level of anxiety, a very high level of despair, and they're feeling deserted, saying, we can't do all of this. You've got to step up. And, regrettably, as we know, many countries haven't stepped up in the COP. Many are trying, many have done a good job. The US is kind of somewhere in the middle. But what I do know is that if we can do things locally that'll have a global effect. And so I wanted to read something I got from one student who was addressing it to elders about, one high school student. And the focus of this will be to empower high school students. And he said, or they said, actually, three of them, like you, we seek to make a place in the world and to make the world a better place. Unlike you, our best efforts could be thwarted. Climate change makes this the most decisive decade in human history. As Barack Obama noted, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. Like you, we have high hopes for careers, homes, and families. Sadly, our hopes could soon be stolen by our political inability to address our crumbling climate. Since we cannot vote or run for office, our future is more in your hands than ours. This is why we seek to work with you. When we take a stand, it is limited. When you take a stand, it is seen. If we stand together on climate, change will be possible. Others will want to join us. So that's an example of some of the sentiment. And it's a strong sentiment because the American dream that all of us older folks have grown up with is becoming an American nightmare for youth. And there's a lot of very good clinical evidence. The Lancet came out with a major study in 2021 of 10,000 youth from all over the world, 1,000 from the US, and they are basically saying that the degree of vulnerability to eco-anxiety is acute. And the vulnerability is very steep. There's a sense of rage, anger, of powerlessness, resentment, and basically a falling faith in the integrity of who we are. I mean, if kids can't depend on parents and parental authorities in the form of government to stand up for them, then the fabric of what we're seeking to create, both in the Christian form and in the US form, is becoming unraveled. So the idea came, since I ran into a lot of people saying, why can't America do something? Well, let's do something local. And this is a Kitsap County focus, and Grace Church was kind enough to step up and hold this. And the basic idea is for elders like us to stand up and to fund climate justice youth grants. So youth, it's high school only. So it's going to be, ninth grade to 12th grade. It's countywide. And we're just seeking to elicit grants, proposals from climate youth. And they'd have to have a teacher to supervise them. And the idea is to empower them, to give them a sense that they're not alone, that they are cared for, they are respected, and their ideas are important. So we want to give them agency. At the same time, I want to appeal to other seniors saying, these are our grandkids. And they may not be your grandkids directly or mine, but they are still our grandkids. And so anybody who wants to step up and give 5 or 10 or $50 more in it, we can do more grants. But also, if you have skill sets, I'm very interested in weaving you in, because as
I was
elders,
gonna
we
say,
have time.
I was going to say, John, that the frustration and anxiety that the young person that you quoted is not just
Right.
contained with young people. Many of us feel the same way,
Yep.
feeling thwarted and ignored.
Yep.
And so the idea of working with a young person to try to realize um, some program or step or some way to speak out about this is a real opportunity for us to feel like we're supporting a change.
Yeah, and ironically, I've done a little work in Africa and elsewhere, and I find that in the developed countries like ours, our capacity to do this is very eroded. When I go into what we call developing countries, there's more of a tradition of elders helping youth. And the parents in the middle are making the money, and the elders are there sitting with the youth saying, we're going to do our best to support you. What are your anxieties? What are your doubts? What are your fears? And we can return to that. We've sort of divorced ourselves from that capacity. And that's where the faith community can be very helpful, because there's a sense of we're all in this together.
Well, I'd like to bring the vicar of Grace Church, Eric Mason, into this conversation to talk a little bit about why this aligns with your congregation and sort of how an organization like Grace might look at their role in this process, why it makes sense for you to host this grant program.
Yeah, I think it fits in because we do believe that, we inherit these sacred texts, beginning with Genesis, where in the beginning God says, "Let there be," and boom, there is, and it is good. And there are creepy, crawly things upon the earth, and flying things in the sky. And God creates humans in God's image, and then charges them with the care and stewardship of the earth. And unfortunately, in the Christian tradition, especially, that idea of stewardship has been translated as dominion, which is then translated into exploitation and domination, and we've not stewarded the earth well. So part of the practices of, again, the Christian tradition is one of repentance, an idea of turning, which is not so much, which is an idea of changing your mind and changing your direction. That is ultimately what the call to repentance is to change your mind and change your direction, and step deeper into life rather than being oriented towards death. And so we are in a situation now where culturally we actually are oriented towards death and focused on our own, and deeply rooted, our own comfort and our own need, and the enormity of the problem, I think, is profound. I think Grace just feels that this is compatible with what we aspire to be. It's not always what we actually end up living out, but it is compatible with our aspirations. So we're trying, and Grace has had a long history here of trying to integrate and do theological reflection and integration of our faith and creation care and environmental stewardship. And so this is an extension of the work of a number of people in the congregation who have cared about this and agonized about it for a number of years.
There has been a tradition of some sort of grant making activity, right, at Grace for a while. Maybe not specifically around youth climate justice, but the idea of supporting things beyond the particular activities of your congregation.
Right, in terms of outreach. So we're giving a percentage of our the money that people give in their pledges and in their offerings. We return a certain percentage of that back into the community. Yeah, and historically, there are people who applied for grants actually to do that. Yes, that is true.
John, were you involved in the framing of this this grant program?
Yeah, to the extent that it fails, it's completely my fault. Completely.
But if it, if it succeeds, it will have many fathers and mothers.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the scope, because what kinds of, I don't know whether, I mean, not to sort of, well, maybe to prime the pump a little bit. What kinds of programs do you think would you hope to see um, present themselves? Are you? Obviously anything is possible.
Well, it's fairly broad because the purpose first is to be there for climate concerned youth, just to be there. So I mean, we're not able to do big grants at the beginning. They'll probably be $500 to $1,500 range, and we'll do a few, and then if that works, we'll do more. And so the design is as we enhance the number of grants, eventually, hopefully, we'll have like an annual Kitsap Climate Summit. So we're trying to go countywide. And any youth anywhere in the county that are interested in this, we're interested in them. It would need to have some sort of classroom relation because a faculty person has to appoint it. But as far as examples are concerned, one, kids could map the areas of greatest peril to climate countywide. That's a nice exercise in geography and topography. Second, kids could map, health risks. Third, they could get out and decide what sort of actions could we take locally to, reduce or mitigate our expression of carbon countywide. Fourth, they could talk about, well, how can we adapt to the sort of present circumstances and find ways to assist people to move in a direction of having, less use of petroleum and a variety of other things. Fifth, what's their sense of how we should move forward? How can, for example, if kids want to propose something that might be a county level rule that could be adopted that would allow governmental resources to go into more comprehensive planning, that would be great. Because in Europe, there are youth parliaments. I mean, youth are members of parliament in Germany. Well, can we start to allow our youth to have actual agency on a governmental level if they take it seriously and participate? So those are some examples.
So one of the things that is noted in the page, which is on Grace's website, is that you're also looking to be able to help provide technical support for those young people. And I'm guessing that technical support would vary dramatically depending on what the proposal was. So are you looking to also recruit folks who would be willing to partner with those teachers and students to execute a project?
Yep, absolutely. So, I have a number of colleagues that are climate scientists or people that are experts in power and a variety of other things. But I also want to mention that a lot of climate work is now political. I mean, we know what we need to do. We lack the political means to get it. So the expertise that we're needing now is people that are good at writing pithy messages and people that might be able to draw logos and designs and help with layout of inspiring programs. I mean, it's how do we get people to pay attention to this opportunity and, make the transition? So frankly, someone who's good at graphics is great. Someone who's good at writing is great. frankly, someone that's maybe good at baking chocolate chip cookies and making them available to kids is good too. So it's almost a sense of a very broad range of support that's possible.
Great. I'm gonna show the website or the page on your website, Eric, which is under gracehere.org. And then let's see if I can get this floating meeting control out of the way so you can see. And it's CJY, I think. Is that right?
Yeah, Climate Justice Youth.
So gracehere.org/CJY, Climate Justice Youth. And then there is a page, you can apply, you can email questions, and I guess you could also email with interest in participating as an adult. Applications are due early next year. And there's your email, John.
Yep.
Climate Justice Youth at gracehere.org. It sounds like it just sounds like a wonderful project. So let's see if I can get back to you.
Well, its success depends on all of us thinking about it and realizing that anybody who has a half hour or an hour can actually make a difference, because we're focused on making a global change here. And I can tell you that if we manage to pull this off, then we can get regional and perhaps larger levels of press, and we can become an example that's replicated in many other areas. So folks at the Senior Center could be critical.
Great. Okay. Any last thoughts?
Reverend Eric.
Yeah, I would just say that part of what has prompted John to this is that the interrelationship between elders and youth. And I mean, we tend to live siloed lives here in the West that are disconnected. There's less intergenerational interactions than there are in more traditional societies. And and that's part of the problem and what I've appreciated about this is it's actually asking those of us who have lived and have experience in this world to be curious about and solicit the imagination and dreaming of those who are younger, and inviting us into that intergenerational collaboration. So it's one of the things that I think is a strength of this.
Sounds wonderful. And we'll keep in touch and let people know about it. Spread this word among members of the Senior Center and the wider community. Thank you for the time, and sounds like a wonderful project. Best of luck, and more than luck, best energies.
Well, it's been a privilege to chat with you, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Bye-bye.